I'm Brandon with Titan Fuel Tanks, and today we're going to be installing an in-bed auxiliary fuel tank, part number 5410050. This video will also apply to the 40-gallon version, part number 5410040. This is a universal tank that fits all in-bed diesel applications. Once you unbox your tank, you're going to want to make sure that you have all the parts needed to install before you get going. First, you're going to find your brackets for the tank. And then in your install kit, you're also going to have the Titan controller, a grounding wire with screw, your different wires you're going to need, wire loom, all your hardware, your hoses, a vent line adapter, hose clamps and grommets, a pump, filter, and then in the back of the tank, in the baffle, there will be a vent line modification kit, the warranty packet with the mounting template. There are two ways that you can mark the holes to drill and mount the tank. The first one is going to be using the included template. You don't want your template too close to the front of the bed because there is this bump out here, and if you put the template too close, you won't have room for your tank or for your hoses to go behind. So you want to make sure you space it out far enough. The other option is you can get your brackets and your tank and actually put it into place so that you can make sure all your holes are lined up, and then mark the brackets so you can drill the holes. When you put the tank in place, you're going to want to make sure you can fit your fingers behind the tank so you have room for your hoses. Once you make sure that the tank is centered and in the right location, you're going to want to mark the outline of the brackets so that when you remove the tank, you can place them back where they were and mark the holes to drill. Once you have the brackets back lined up, go ahead and mark the 4 holes to drill. Once you have your holes marked, you're going to want to check underneath the bed to make sure that there's nothing going to obstruct when you go to drill your holes. Once you get your holes marked, you're going to want to use a center punch or a smaller pilot hole so you can locate that hole. And then when you drill the holes, the hardware is 3/8, but I like to go up a couple sizes. That way you have a little bit of play when you install the bolts. Next, you're going to want to drill the holes where your wires and your 2 hoses are going to pass through. Usually I drill a 3/4 inch hole for the 2 hoses and a slightly smaller hole for the wires. And then I like to deburr all the holes I've drilled. Now we're going to prepare the brackets for installation into the truck. We're going to install the carriage bolts onto the brackets with retainers so that they are captured and stay in place when you go to install the brackets. You're going to do that using something like a 14mm socket. You will have 8 longer carriage bolts. Those are going to get installed into the mounting holes, and then you'll have 2, and those are going to actually face upward, and that's what your toe clamps bolt down to. Now this bracket is ready to be installed on the truck. Before we install the tank into the bed, I like to get the wiring and the plumbing attached to the tank so I can feed them down through the bed and work my way forward. To build the harness for the tank, you're going to need a purple and a black wire for the level sensor, the blue wire for the pump. Depending on if you mount the pump in the bed or underneath the bed depends on where this blue wire needs to come into place. Because I'm going to be mounting this pump underneath the bed, I'm going to keep the blue wire out for a couple feet so that this comes from the tank and the blue wire will stay underneath the bed. Now I'm going to untie it from the toolbox. I'm going to pull out the first couple feet of blue wire and tie it back on. We will now run the loom for the length of the wire. This is what my loom looks like when I go to install it on the tank. I have some extra loom to tuck in these wires, and my blue wire comes out later. This can be tucked in once we figure out exactly where the pump's going to end up. Next thing we're going to do is prepare the tank by removing the cover and installing the hoses and wires onto the tank. The 3/8 hose gets installed onto the draw tube, and the 5/16 gets installed onto this rollover vent. So the next thing we're going to do is strip these wires, the purple and the black. These get attached to the pink and the black on the level sensor, and we're going to use the heat shrink butt connectors to crimp those down. Once you've crimped your wires, you're going to want to heat shrink the connectors. You can do that with a heat gun or a lighter or gently with a torch. The other wire you need to hook up before you put the tank in is the grounding wire. There's a little screw at the bottom of this bag, don't lose it. And you take the small eyelet end, you're going to mount it to this hole in the level sensor. Now this end needs to get grounded to the body. Sometimes I'll do that using the carriage bolt, put this under the mounting bracket, or you can run it through the bed and attach it to the frame. Once you have your feed hose, your vent line, your level sensor wiring, and your static ground line hooked up, you can go ahead and reinstall the cover and get the tank put into place. Next, you're going to install the grommets into the holes for the vent and feed hose. Now you're going to put the brackets into place, bring the tank close, feed all your hoses and your wires through the holes you've drilled, and then slide the tank into place. Next, we're going to put the washers and nuts on these studs to tighten the brackets down to the bed. Once you have your brackets tightened from underneath, then you can install and tighten your toe clamps. Once you have your tank mounted in place, you're going to either start on your plumbing or your electrical. On this one, we're going to start plumbing the feed and vent line into the factory tank. To do that, you're going to need this vent line adapter. This is a universal part to allow you to adapt into the vent line of the truck to feed the fuel and also to vent the tank. If you are using the larger of the two hoses, you can cut off the smaller nipple. Or if you're using the smaller one, just install it as is. We also include this vent line modification kit, which comes with a section of hose and 2 hose clamps. This will be needed on many of the newer Ford and Ram vehicles, as they have a metal vent line all the way to the frame. In that case, you're going to disconnect the hose that goes to the tank from the metal vent line, and then you're going to cut the metal vent line back 6 to 8 inches. You will install this hose over the metal piece, and then you can install this piece in to the rubber hose, and then this side goes towards the main tank. Once you have this piece installed into the truck, you're going to plumb your feed and vent lines. Your feed is the larger, your vent line is the smaller nipple. When you're running these hoses, your feed line needs to go through the filter and then the pump and then to this, while your vent line needs to come as directly into this vent line nipple as you can. If you have any low spots in that vent line, it will cause the tank to not equalize and not fill well. On this Ram truck, it has the larger vent line, so we're going to cut the vent line adapter, the smaller nipples off, so that it'll fit in the vent line better. Next, we're going to cut the vent line. When you're laying out your vent line setup, you want to make sure you don't add any length into the system. That can push a little bit of extra slack into that main vent line, causing a sag and making filling your main tank much harder. Once you've cut that metal vent line, you dress the edges, make sure there's no sharp burrs, and then you're going to cut an appropriate length of hose so that you can slip that over the metal vent line and connect the whole system together and tighten down all your hose clamps. When you orient your vent line, you want it to be slightly angled up, whether it's here or straight up and down. You just want it to be able any fuel to be able to drain out of the vent line into the vent line adapter. Once you have your vent line adapter in place, you're going to get your pump ready to be installed. In order to do that, you're going to remove these shipping caps. You're going to take the pump nipples and making sure not to cross thread them. You want to get them started and then snug them down with a wrench. Now that your pump's ready to be installed, when you screw it in, you're going to attach this ground to your screw, and that will be your ground for your pump. Next, we're going to install the filter before the fuel pump. Once you have everything plumbed, you can go ahead and hook up your blue power wire to the red power wire of the pump and get that tied up. So now we're going to zip tie it up. Once I have the wire run most of the way to the front, I'm going to go under the hood and I'm going to take some sort of flexible wire and I feed it down through the path that I want the wire to go. Once underneath, I attach it and then I can pull the wire up into the engine bay, allowing me to connect the controller. When you're running this wire, make sure you keep it away from your steering shaft so it doesn't get caught, any heat sources, or anything like that. Once you have your wires run from the back of the truck up into the engine bay, now we're going to move to inside the cab, get the controller ready, and feed the wires through the firewall. Once you have your controller out of the box, I like to tape it up like I did with the other wiring harness so that it's nice and neat. The controller can be installed as is, but I like to make one change that makes it a little bit cleaner of an install. I like to pull the screw out of the back, take the halves apart, and drill a hole in the back half side of this controller so I can run the wires out the side instead of the back. That prevents me from having to drill any holes in the dash. On this truck, you can run the wires cleanly next to the steering column and down below the dash and through the firewall. So on this truck, we're going to run the wire through this same grommet that this cable goes through. I'm going to do that using a little piece of TIG wire that I will tape the wire to and feed it through the firewall. Now we need to find a fuse that we can tap into to get power to the controller and to the pump. The way we're going to do that is with a test light. We are going to go and probe the fuses and find one that is powered when the truck is running, but not when the truck is off. The circuit we're looking for is off when the key is off and on when the key is on. We want it to be a 15 or 20 amp fuse. We're looking for circuits that aren't running control modules or computers, anything like that. More basic circuits. We're going to hook one end of the test light to ground, and then we're going to probe for power, find some that are off, turn on the key, and see if they turn on. Once you find the fuse you're going to use, you're going to pull the fuse and figure out which side is input and which side is output. Our system needs to be on the output side so that it is protected by that fuse. So that side's the input. So So we want it on the rear of the fuse, or towards the rear of the truck. We want it on the right side of the fuse. The left side of this fuse is live, so we are going to put the tap on the right side of the fuse. Install the fuse tap onto the fuse. Spin around a little bit. With the wires coming from the controller, we are going to want the power and the ground. In order to get the power into the relay box, we're going to need to notch either the lid or the lip of the box in order to run the wire in. Just to protect the power wire a little bit better, I do 1 or 2 wraps where it passes through that new notch you cut. On the power wire, we're going to use the female blade terminal. We're going to crimp that on and we can hook it up. You're going to want to find a good ground for the level sensor and for the controller. Once you find that, run your wires, crimp the 2 ring terminals, and attach the ground. Next, you're going to want to connect your blue wires together and your purple wires together with the heat shrink butt connectors. Once you have the butt connectors crimped, go ahead and heat shrink them and then tuck them away, zip tie them neat and tidy. Once you have finished your install and filled your tank, you're going to want to test it for proper operation. When you turn the truck on, the lower lights will flash and the other lights will come on. Then it'll slowly acquire the signal for the level sensor and show you how much fuel is in the tank. Then you can press the power button, a red light in the corner will come on and it'll begin pumping. This is a solenoid style pump, so it will click, and that is the proper operation. In order to adjust the brightness on the controller, with it on but not pumping, you're going to push and hold the power button until it beeps, and then you can click through different brightness settings and dim or brighten the controller. Once you get it to where you let go, it'll beep 3 times and your setting has been saved. And then you can continue to use the pump. Once you've tested the system and ensured everything's working properly, let it pump some fuel for a little while and ensure that the fuel gauge is going up on the truck. Now you have 50 gallons of fuel usable while you're on the road. If you have any questions on install or product operation, please give us a call and let us help you out. We hope you enjoy your tank.